I've been doing a little reading up on the Dark Carnival and Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, which, if you're familiar with it, you know is the Wizards of the Coast Guide to Domains of Dread. Domains of Dread specifically connect to the Shadowfell, which itself serves as a foil to the Feywild and its Domains of Delight. I want to answer two questions in this video. How could the Dark Carnival and Van Richten's improve the Fey Carnival in Wild Beyond the Witchlight? And what's my idea for a better Witchlight ending? First, let's look more closely at the Carnival in Van Richten's, which actually has Fey elements to it despite not being Fey itself. More specifically, outside the Carnival, characters can find the Litwick Market, made up of Fey characters that appear on the Carnival's outskirts as mysterious merchants selling dangerous enigmas and missed talismans. They peddle lost memories or love potions for peculiar prices, such as the buyer's dreams or ability to speak vowels. Gradually, more dangerous Fey arrive, creatures who delight in sabotaging performances or nearby settlements. These tricks and accidents grow increasingly dangerous, potentially culminating in the disasters for which the Carnival's troopers ultimately take the blame. The Carnival's other features include mysterious flyers that appear before the Carnival's arrival, a hall of horrors, and a number of strange sideshows, like an acrobat dressed as a vampire, or a druidic snake charmer who claims to have been born as a snake. It's run by the Eladrin Isolde, who carries with her an evil sentient blade which serves as the realm's Dark Lord. The Carnival is actually already connected to the Witchlight Carnival. Zybilna, the key archfey in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, the one who originally created the Witchlight Carnival and needs to be saved by the players as the module's main storyline, she's the one who originally put Isolde in charge of the Witchlight Carnival, which I'll get into later. Eventually, the two separate traveling carnivals met, and the owners of each, Isolde and Mr. Witch and Mr. Light, as they'd become to known, wanted to swap, at least until the two carnivals met again. Zybilna allowed the switch, which would give her less access to and control over Isolde, but she's then the one who sent malevolent Fey creatures to hound Isolde, so she's the one that added the Fey element to the darker carnival too. But the consequences of the swap end there. The Shadowfell Carnival now has a Fey owner, originally appointed by an Archfey, and the Fey therefore now impact the Carnival. But the Fey Carnival, despite now having Shadowfell owners, is not at all affected by the darkness of their origin. And that's my biggest issue. A stronger version of the Witchlight Carnival is one that has been affected by its encounter with the Dark Carnival, and especially by its new owners. It's one that hasn't escaped unscathed by that history, that can carry on as though a fundamental change hasn't occurred. To be clear, Witchlight isn't bad. I had fun running it and my players had fun playing it. But one of my biggest criticisms of the campaign as a whole, and of modern Fey interpretations in general, is the niceness of it all. Traditional Fey are tricky, strange, cruel, beautiful, and for that reason often more dangerous than blatantly horrific monsters. I'm not saying the campaign doesn't feature some of those elements, but they are far overshadowed by the fun kind of whimsical, the cute, the funny, the easily fixed and unaffected. In other words, even if the carnival was originally only light and whimsical, despite my personal preferences, it needs to at least experience the impact of the ownership swap. It needs to see some dangerous or malevolent carnies. It needs attractions that are beautiful, delightful, and a little off-putting, maybe even disturbing. It needs to care less about everyone being perfectly happy, unless you want to turn that itself into a more sinister plot. It needs Fey creatures trailing behind to get in on a piece of their realm's material plane action, setting up strange booths for trade, even if Zybilna didn't send them herself. It needs more trickiness, more danger, even if not mortal. If you plan to run the Witchlight Carnival, I'd especially suggest getting rid of its mood element. Don't alter the weather or other details for better or worse, depending on how much fun people are having. That's too on the nose, and to me, kind of silly. Even if you keep that piece, make the fact that Shadarkai, Shadowfell elves, are in charge of the carnival mean darker elements have made their way onto the thoroughfare. I think the result would be a much more intriguing entry into this campaign, and it also opens up the possibility of a much more intriguing exit as well. If I'm going to completely change the ending of the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, I should explain why I think it needs an overhaul. First, the factions in the castle don't really connect to the story. The League of Malevolence shows up to cause trouble, Valor's call arrives right when they do to stop them, and in the chaos of what follows, the hags are able to freeze Zybilna and the rest of the castle in time. The League is a distraction tool for the hags and guard the palace after the freezing. That's the only skin they have in this game, their conflict with Valor's call. And the characters from both factions, scattered throughout the rest of Prismeer, are clearly just there to explain some of the situation so that the party isn't blindsided when they actually reach the palace. In other words, it feels like a weak excuse to add some enemies to the castle, maybe even iconic ones that provide a fun but unnecessary nod to the 80s. Second, the writing for and construction of the palace in general is, in my opinion, just okay. You can watch my review of the campaign's locations and random encounters for more of my thoughts on that. But here's my alternate ending. Let me know how you'd adjust it, what you'd add. I'm really curious what other people will think of this idea. If you've read the campaign book, you know that the three hags who take over Prismeer, Zybilna's realm, are her adoptive sisters. They have a personal history with her, and therefore personal vendettas as their motivation to get rid of her. It's only reasonable that they would therefore work alongside another figure who also has a personal history with Zybilna, Isolde. As written in Van Richten's, Isolde was a holy warrior devoted to a pantheon of elven deities. She defended the Feywild against dragons, demons, and other threats. In time, her heroics caught the eye of an archfey named Zybilna, who had forged secret pacts with some of the fiends Isolde and her companions had slain. Zybilna enlisted a powerful fiend known only as the Caller to corrupt and slay all of Isolde's companions, leaving Isolde alone, bitter, and vulnerable. The insidious archfey then befriended Isolde and offered to help her forget her terrible losses. So Zybilna put Isolde in charge of the Fey Carnival, never letting on that she's the one who had destroyed Isolde's life so irreparably. Ever since Isolde swapped carnivals, she's been on a journey to seek revenge against the Caller. Again, unaware that Zybilna hired the fiend in the first place. But what if Zybilna had some advisors, some hag sisters, who knew everything? And what if they revealed the truth to Isolde, that Zybilna is the true source of all her pain, in exchange for assisting them in ridding Prismeer of the cruel archfey? Let's say the hags, when band together as a coven, still freeze Zybilna in time in her castle, but then they send her and her cauldron to the Dark Carnival for safekeeping by Isolde. It makes so much more sense. Isolde has personal motivation for guarding Zybilna, which the League of Malevolence just doesn't have, and she isn't upset that she can't kill Zybilna. How much better to control her fate while she's still somewhat alive? How much better to ruin her life, the way Zybilna once ruined hers, while continuing in her mission to track down the Caller. The party can still take a journey through Prismeer, through the Hag's 3 splinter realms, but their end goal would not then be the palace. It would instead be the Dark Carnival. Since the Hags are working with Isolde, they'd have a way to teleport to it, so that wouldn't be a problem. The final Hag's realm has a bell characters can ring that brings them right to the palace. If nothing else, just change the bell's destination so that it brings the characters to the Dark Carnival instead. This also means the story sort of ends where it began. The party has already experienced the delight of the Witchlight Carnival, even if it has a somewhat corrupted form, and they now face a very different kind of carnival, one with a completely opposite nature. They could encounter new events and sideshows while maintaining the familiarity of a carnival setting. They wouldn't even be leaving behind a Fey story, since the Litwick market could easily come into play. You could still keep the cauldron, make it the key to freeing Zybilna, or you could just have Zybilna herself hidden somewhere in this place, maybe even in the cauldron, which is being used as a prop for a big top performance. And you could even still keep the Jabberwock. It's been caged as a performing beast, one that's extremely dangerous, muddles the mind, creates violence through its burbling sounds, or it could just be used to guard Zybilna like the original source material, since Isolde can't watch her all the time. Would you want to keep Snickersnack the Vorpal sword? Give Isolde's sword, which again is actually the Dark Lord of this realm, which is cool, the same abilities. Defeating Isolde and using the sword would almost certainly curse the player, but man, if they wouldn't be able to chop off some heads, which, I should point out, Isolde's sword loves to do anyway. The morals of this ending are more blurred. Characters' motivations for freeing Zybilna, especially if they know what she's done to Isolde, would come from the understanding that Prismeer needs its Archfey back, and keeping her frozen isn't going to undo the damage she's done. On the other hand, characters may decide that Zybilna is the true problem, and defeating her, viewing her as the BBEG, would grant both Isolde and Prismeer true freedom. I really wish I'd made these changes before I ran the book, but hindsight is 2020. And like I said, we have had fun running the book as written, but I would love to know what you think of my ideas, so please comment, like this video, subscribe, all of that, and I hope you have a great whatever it is, and I will see you next time.